Does more money really make us more happy? In most every culture today, the underlying belief is that more money will make you happier. We won't be stressed about money and we'll be able to buy great things and experiences and take care of the people that we love. So we should all work hard and go make as much money as possible. But there's also another storyline that's equally as pervasive, which claims almost the exact opposite of that money can't buy happiness. That in the end, money doesn't really matter once you have the basic necessities of life covered. And there's even been research proving that. I've increased my income since 2012 by 403%, so I can speak to both sides of the spectrum too. But figuring this out is an important distinction because it can totally change the direction of our life and where we spend our time and our energy. If it's going to make a difference to make more than $75,000 per year, which is that typical threshold of happiness, then maybe we should continue to push on our careers and work and grow our income. But if nothing changes deep down and we just end up with a Bosch dishwasher instead of a Whirlpool, or we drive a BMW 340i instead of a used Toyota Camry, then what's the point? In that case, we definitely should not work harder to grow our income. So which perspective is true? I remember back in high school, I was told by teachers that you don't want to be a deadbeat and get stuck flipping burgers. That's something to be ashamed of. Instead, go to college, get a good job, make a big fat paycheck, and then you'll be happy. It felt like everyone was pushing me and the kids around me to all jump on this very common path of college, then career, then happiness. And it was more than that literal logistical encouragement to do those things and like fill out applications and stuff. It was that social undercurrent doing the same thing. We got asked all the time, what are your plans for after high school? Where are you going to college? What are you going to study? What do you want to do for a job? There was this presumption that that was on our minds and that we had a plan for all that because that's the way to do it, right? Then I had similar social pressure as I finished college too. What's the plan? Where are you going? What company are you going to work for? What are you doing with your life? That social pressure was all towards this capitalistic approach to my own life satisfaction. I never heard anybody stop to ask anybody about other approaches to happiness. Hey, are you going to meditate? Are you going to spend time with your family? How much will you exercise? Like, no one said anything about that. It was capitalism. Get a job. Make the money. Then after I got out of college, I worked for a decade and I kept hearing a totally different narrative. That money can't buy happiness. That rich people are often empty despite their giant bank accounts and their incredible accomplishments, and that they're now searching for deeper meaning, just like I am. And you've probably heard that argument before too. And you may have heard my favorite story that sums up that ethos of the money doesn't make you happy tale. There once was a businessman who was sitting by the beach in a small Brazilian village. As he sat, he saw a Brazilian fisherman rowing a small boat towards the shore, having caught quite a few big fish. The businessman was impressed and asked the fisherman, "How long does it take you to catch so many fish?" The fisherman replied, "Oh, just a short while." "Then why don't you stay longer at sea and catch even more?" The businessman was astonished. "This is enough to feed my whole family," the fisherman said. The businessman then asked, "So what do you do for the rest of the day?" The fisherman replied, "Well, I just usually wake up early in the morning, go out to sea, catch a few fish, then I go back and play music with my kids. In the afternoon, I take a nap with my wife, and evening comes, I join my buddies in the village for a drink. We play guitar, sing, and we dance throughout the night." The businessman offered a suggestion to the fisherman. "I'm a PhD in business management. I could help you become a more successful person. From now on, you should spend more time at sea and try and catch as many fish as possible. When you saved enough money, you could buy a bigger boat and catch even more fish. Soon you'll be able to afford to buy more boats, set up your own company, your own production plant for canned food, and a distribution network. By then you'll have moved out of this village and to Sao Paulo, where you can set up an HQ to manage your other branches." The fisherman continues, "And after that," the businessman laughs hardly, "after that, you can live like a king in your own house. When the time is right, you can go public and float your shares in the stock exchange and you will be rich." The fisherman asks, "And after that?" The businessman says, "After that, you can finally retire. You can move to a house by the fishing village, wake up early in the morning, catch a few fish, then return home to play with your kids, have a nice afternoon nap with your wife, and when the evening comes, you can join your buddies for a drink, play the guitar, sing and dance throughout the night." The fisherman was puzzled. "Isn't that what I'm doing right now?" That's a good one. So I attempted to let that kind of truth seep into my soul and make me feel satisfied with my small salary, but it never worked. I liked not having a ton of responsibility and risk be a part of my job, but I also loved sports cars and I couldn't afford one. I wanted to be able to be a responsible adult and husband. And once I learned about investing and financial freedom, I wanted to be able to have that money necessary to invest as early as possible so I could be financially free myself. So I went for it. Starting in 2018, I read dozens of books. I set and tracked goals. I remade myself from the ground up. I got bonuses, raises, and a promotion. I tried starting a side business too as a handyman, which taught me a lot, but I ultimately stopped because it was a crazy time commitment for not that much money. Then I started this YouTube channel in 2019 so that we could talk about finance for humans with the hope that I could make some side income until it became meaningful enough to become my full-time career. And from 2012 to 2021, I increased my own income by 403%. I beat my own lofty goals that I had set for what kind of income I could make someday. And it happened happened a lot faster than I expected. I'd come full circle with money from not having nearly enough to having more than I ever thought that I would have, and I expected to feel a palpable difference, especially with new research like this PNAS article coming out largely supporting that kind of claim. PNAS is just the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and they host a lot of like researched articles and things like that, so it's a good source. There's a link to this article in the description if you want to follow along, but what the study does is it immediately calls out past research on this topic of money versus happiness as basically just coming to the wrong conclusion. Those old studies had claimed that beyond $75,000, money is just a way of keeping score in life, and that there might be little reason to care about further increases in income as far as one's day-to-day experiences are concerned. Basically, that more money didn't make you any happier past 75 grand per year. But this new data tells a bit of a different story. We can measure happiness both in the current moment and also in the past, in like this retrospective, remembering the overall state of our life kind of way. And this study shows that both of those measurements improve with a fairly steep slope as your income goes up and even as people approach and surpass $80,000 per year. But wait, Brendan, what happens as that income continues to grow? Maybe someone who makes a ton of money would claim that in this moment, yeah, they feel happier than someone earning a smaller amount. But what about looking back over the course of years and years? Wouldn't they end up deciding that it wasn't actually worth the work and the stress and the sacrifice to earn that extra dough? Wouldn't that be like the fisherman in the story and look at what he could have done and then go, well, I'm not going to do that. That would cause me to have all this disdain and regret, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep things the same. Well, apparently not. Both of those kinds of happiness continue to increase in lockstep as income rose and rose and rose. This new data is suggesting that higher incomes are associated with both feeling better day to day and being more satisfied with life overall. Maybe the fisherman should have gone public with his company. What about in my own experience? Did I notice a difference in happiness now that I've 4x'd my income? Well, I mean, maybe. We have bought more and nicer stuff, which is fun. I got a new camera and laptop and some other gear, which is a lot of fun for me. And we pulled the trigger on buying my wife a new car, but we'd also been saving up for her to get a new car since 2017, so it wasn't so much a result of the income right now. I think the biggest detriment is that I feel like I have almost no time at all. There's always a bit more that I could be doing for work, and there's always a ton more, infinite amounts more that I could do for online business stuff and for YouTube videos. If anything, I want to find ways to work less, even if that means my income doesn't grow in the future. And that's why I took off basically as much time as my boss will let me have. I'm in a bit of a sabbatical right now from work, and so it's giving me a taste of what time off feels like. I've only been off of work for 5 days now, and I've already had some real revelations. Number one, time feels like it moves so slowly. Time has not moved this slowly since I was a kid, honestly. I've become so accustomed to the rush of every day, like getting ready for work, go to work, have a hectic working day, come home, attempt to cram in everything I need to finish that day well, like feeding and bathing babies, catching up on household logistics, seeing my wife for a few minutes, then going to bed so I can wake up and do it all again. Stopping that rushing was like a deafening silence. And the added control that I have over this last week of when I choose to do something is incredible. I can choose when I want to wake up, when I want to go to a busy store, intentionally in off hours. I'll just go there with the retirees. It's very nice. And I think that feeling of time being an even bigger luxury than the added income I've gotten in the last couple of years is reflected in another study, also on PNAS. Man, am I a nerd today or what? So much data, so many articles. This study says that as we increase our wealth, there's an unintended consequence that's attached, which is called time famine. And that when these wealthier people that were studied spent their money on a service that gave them back their time, they enjoyed that expenditure of cash more than if they just bought some normal material purchase. Which reminds me, I've been talking about hiring a landscape company for 2 years now, but I think after reading that study, it's finally time. This year, I'm hiring someone. It's sealed on the internet. Boom. For me, landscaping is something that I just kind of hate doing, and so this way I can have that time back, and we will undoubtedly have a better looking yard. So what's the takeaway overall? I'd say to be as happy as possible, humans all need to have our basic needs met first, and then beyond that level of income, having more money does allow us the kind of choices that we want to spend our time in the ways that we love. However, at the same time, I do think that we're built to do things and to work and to grow. If people had ample money, which meant we could do whatever we want with our time, we would be super unhappy unless we had something to devote our time and energy to. You can't just sit on the couch all day. That would suck. We would hate that. For me, something that's worthwhile to devote my time and energy to is being here with you. Yes, of course, it's more than that. I've spent a lot of time in the last week on vacation with my family and going on lots of runs and hikes, and it's been awesome. But I'm also taking this sabbatical from my full-time job as a chance to really dig into creating the best videos I can for you, along with free downloadable tools like my net worth tracker, my Memento Mori grid, and biggest of all, my budgeting spreadsheet. I love thinking about this kind of thing and creating meaningful stuff online. That's how I choose to spend this time away from work, and it is great. What would you do if you had your financial bases covered while not having to work? Describe your ideal week in detail. That'll be the secret comment for today's video. Let me know your answer to that question and I'll keep an eye out for it because these are my favorite comments by far. Speaking of making good stuff for you, if you want to see that awesome budgeting spreadsheet and how to use it, watch this video next. It goes over everything from how it was designed and how to use it to a real example of my own expenses in there filled out so you can see it in action. Click here to see it now and to get a copy of the budgeting template for free.